Nintendo is playing with power again. Superpower. To the point that people are already nicknaming the Switch successor the Super Switch. A name that makes sense with the colored button layout of the Japanese Super Famicom and European SNES in the remakes of Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. GameXplain has theorized that the colored layout of the 90s, well, minus America, might return in the controllers of the Switch successor in 2024.
This comes on top of Eurogamer's, The Video Game Chronicles, and Nate the Hate's extensive reports. It is clear that Nintendo showed their next system to developers at Gamescom. From this one, we know that Nvidia provides a far better GPU than the existing Tegra X1 chip, an underpowered, even in 2017 chip that has kept most new third-party games away from the Switch. That does explain why the closed demo of Nintendo's next-gen system used an upscaled tech demo of Breath of the Wild. The March 2017 Switch launch title runs at 900p 30 frames per second until you enter Korok Forest. Thanks to new hardware and Nvidia DLSS upscaling, this is no longer the case. In fact, we might see the 19th Zelda game and even the 20th Zelda Tears of the Kingdom run close to or actually upscaled 4K with ray tracing in docked mode.
A solution we had talked about in the past, but now it appears to become a reality on the Switch successor. As up to now, Nintendo has only used AMD's simpler Fidelity Super Resolution or FSR upscaling, Deep Learning Super Sampling. Nvidia themselves describes the technology the following way. DLSS boosts performance for compatible chips by using AI to output high-resolution frames from a lower-resolution input. DLSS samples multiple lower-resolution images and uses motion data and feedback from prior frames to reconstruct native quality images. In this case, let's use the Breath of the Wild demo example. Say that the input on the new system is 1080p or Full HD. With DLSS AI, will become significantly higher than that. How much higher? It is hard to tell, but reports from Gamescom indicate 4K 60fps. That is right, the impossible numbers in an open world title on a Nintendo system. Quite a leap from 900p 30fps with drops. Not only that, but this beast of a new system apparently offers minimal near instantaneous load times. This in itself might indicate that the system has an SSD drive. You know, just like the PS5.
Why can't the Switch perform similar magic? Simple. DLSS technology is unlike FSR-based hardware. Up to now, it has been limited to Nvidia's own RTX line of graphics cards, but this is about to change. Plus, the Switch and OLED don't have the internal horsepower to use the technology to its fullest potential. You see, the Switch has barely 4GB of RAM power, which is half of what the PS4 had at launch in 2013, a far cry from any of the current gen consoles. The successor, however, is rumored to have 12GB of RAM power, 3 times more than the Switch. This might sound unreal until you realize that this is only slightly more than the entry-level Xbox Series S with its 10GB of RAM. The PS5 and Xbox Series X both have 16GB of RAM each. In other words, Nintendo is only filling in a massive gap, but Nvidia's DLSS is their secret weapon that might even the field at least until 2027. This is when we are likely to get the PlayStation 6 and whatever Xbox decides to call their next system. That, or whenever we get a PS5 Pro, which might also be around when Nintendo's next system launches. The big N clearly means business, as they know how important a solid launch lineup is, hence what they showed behind closed doors at Gamescom being a hand-tailored proposal to the most hardcore graphic-intensive game developers. To them, DLSS is a game changer, but a question that has surfaced since some of the developers broke their signed NDA contract is what kind of DLSS?
Many have alluded that the system is running a simplified version of 3.5, which might explain why opposing voices have stated that it is more likely 3.1. Nate the Hate is unsure which of these two it might end up being. Another possible reason for this uncertainty is that Nintendo and Nvidia probably settled on a GPU and DLSS version earlier in 2023. Even if it ends up being 3.1, it is still more than impressive, and thus made sense to demonstrate its power with the PS5 designed Matrix Awakens Unreal Engine 5 demo. According to what Nate the Hate has heard, Nintendo's next system runs the demo just as well as the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Not only that, with possibly even better ray tracing than the two current gen systems. Showing this demo at Gamescom in Germany was clearly a demonstration of upcoming Nintendo power to Western developers. For anyone who hasn't seen or experienced the Matrix demo, then know that it is the future of game detail rendering and the power of Unreal Engine 5. The fact that the Switch successor, and nearly 100% certain dockable hybrid, can run this, DLSS docked with comparable, if not even greater visual fidelity to the PlayStation 5, speaks volumes.
You see, the only thing that has been holding back the Switch against PlayStation 4 and 5 in certain regions is this: a lack of new, mostly Western third-party games on day one. We have seen this over and over again with titles like Doom Eternal and Hogwarts Legacy, which were promised on the same day as on PlayStation and Xbox, but then, nope. However, Nvidia's DLSS upscaling and framerate optimization erases most of that gap. Hence, why the Unreal Engine 5 Matrix Awakens demo running so well on a Nintendo system is quite impressive and the true game changer here. This will result in far greater day one third-party support, but first you need a test in the form of a game that is on PS5. One of the games that have been heavily rumoured to serve this guinea pig role is Square Enix's Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. This is the beefed up PS5 and PC version of the remake with an additional campaign, Intermission. Even then, this might only just be the beginning. The Switch 2 is likely coming out sometime after March 31st, 2024, not long before the PS5 3-month timed exclusivity of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth expires on May 29th.
In this case, I see two scenarios. First one is that the Switch 2 is revealed before May 29th, with Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate confirmed, and then in the first direct after this one, we get the reveal of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for Switch 2. The second is that Nintendo pushes the reveal of the Switch 2 until the traditional June Direct. That is to say, after Rebirth's timed PS5 exclusivity has expired on May 29th. In this case, both Remake and Rebirth could be announced for the Switch 2 simultaneously, marking the end of half-year or longer delays of so-called Nintendo ports. Over 7 years, the Switch missed out on a lot of quality games from third-party developers due to lack of power, not counting PS5 and Xbox Series X console exclusives like Spider-Man 2 and Starfield. If we only include two of the most notable and acclaimed Japanese developers from 2019 to 2023, we find titles like Capcom's Devil May Cry 5 and Street Fighter 6, and From Software's Game of the Year winners Sekiro and Elden Ring. Yes, Resident Evil 8 Village was available for Switch Cloud Gaming, but that is pathetic now that the game is even on iPhone 15 Pro. Needless to say, the cloud experience on the Switch has been terrible, and might in itself have forced Nintendo to address the power issue once and for all, to no longer embarrass themselves in front of their third-party partners. Well, that, and increased competition from Valve's Steam Deck.
If we look west, then in 2023, the Switch missed out on the universally acclaimed Baldur's Gate 3 by Larian Studios. Nevertheless, with Nintendo's next system boasting DLSS and likely 12GB of RAM, Baldur's Gate 3 might even be a Switch 2 launch title. Nintendo's real aim though are the big upcoming mature Western bestsellers coming in 2025 and beyond, Grand Theft Auto 6 and The Witcher 4 for example. With the recent release of Red Dead Redemption Switch, Rockstar and Nintendo might already have secured a GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2 within the first 12 months of the system's life. This could be the testing ground for a day one GTA 6 port for the Switch 2. This would be the highest target for Nintendo when Bethesda's Elder Scrolls 6 will be an Xbox and PC exclusive years from now after Starfield. No more mobile versions of AAA games like Final Fantasy 15 and 7. In fact, no more single miracle ports of games out for months prior like Doom Eternal or years like Witcher 3 on other systems. These would be rather consistent new third-party games on the same launch day as the PS5 and Xbox Series systems, at least until 2028 and 2029. But what else is appealing for the most demanding third-party developers and publishers? An established install base, and the Switch 2, or whatever it ends up being called, is indicated more and more likely to be backwards compatible.
In the beginning, we indicated that both the Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remakes had the same 4-colored action button coloring. As GameXplain pointed out, in the case of Paper Mario, this one was not found in the original GameCube version with the same color layout. A first hint perhaps that these, and many other Switch titles, are backwards compatible? Though not necessarily for the Switch cards they release on, since if there are different cards between the systems, then Nintendo could offer free digital downloads of Switch titles after providing proof of past purchase. so backwards compatibility, but under certain conditions. So if these also get DLSS versions, then you know how big of a deal this is. In fact, the Breath of the Wild 4K 60 tech demo likely also served exactly said purpose at Gamescom. Backwards compatibility being the first argument to demanding Western third-party developers. A system already with packed library of games, and on top of that, taking advantage of DLSS. The Unreal Engine 5 Matrix Awakens demo then erased any doubt about the power of the system, all thanks to the combination of RAM plus DLSS. Result? A system third-party AAA graphics-focused Western developers can easily port games to day one. This mighty fuse might be what makes the next system an even bigger success than the Switch's close to 140 plus million sold systems. The reason to own only one system if you can live without PlayStation and Xbox exclusives.
After all, Nintendo will have the best-selling exclusives of any system, where open-world Pokemon and Zelda plus 3D Mario sell at least 25 million copies each. The next Mario Kart and Animal Crossing could destroy even that. The same going for Super Smash Bros. Too. Splatoon might even sell 20 million, while Donkey Kong, future Monolith Soft games, and yes, Metroid could also get beyond 5 million sold copies. Prime 4, with its absence at the September 2023 Nintendo Direct, looks more and more likely to be the showcase dual-release title. Where the Switch version serves one more purpose is showing everyone how graphically outdated our beloved system from 2017 truly is, especially when docked compared to the next bestseller from 2024, thus pushing an immediate wave of transitioning players for the docked experience alone. Though, we all really know what would be the immediate system seller. Mario Kart 10, the ultimate racing crossover, in DLSS upscaled 4K 60 FPS docked. The same can be said for a new 3D Mario, as both of these titles will help the system in the first months and years.
Undocked, the Switch 2 might not be too different from the Switch, as the current reports point to a return to LCD instead of the Switch OLED's 720p OLED display. Nintendo needs to cut costs somewhere, though it might still be an upgrade, namely to a bigger 1080p LCD, which might look just as good as the OLED. Speaking of costs, this system could quickly end up being the first Nintendo system in history starting from $400 USD, and perhaps even get close to $500. A price point we should prepare for, as even the OLED Switch is $350 US at the moment, only $50 below the PS5 digital edition, and its $400 USD entry price. Even with $400, it will still be $100 USD below the disc-based PS5. No matter what is being reported, we need to expect a higher price than the vanilla Switch and the OLED with the reported specs. That is the new norm for consoles and dockable hybrids. Just look at the Steam Deck, Nintendo's possible main motivation for going so hard on power this time. More and more voices point to the fact that the system might be at the furthest 12 months away from the upload of this video, which points to Nintendo, outside of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, directing all their big new games to the next system, both in terms of marketing and development. But since this video focused on the system itself, specs and fixing the day one third-party AAA shortcoming of the Switch, a mouthful yeah, we will go over other topics in future videos. If Nintendo can nail all we have covered here and continue to provide high quality games themselves, then this upcoming system will likely be the best console ever. So be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell to not miss any of our upcoming Switch 2 videos. A big thanks to you for watching until the end. The same goes to our patreon.com/CommonRoll patrons, and in particular, raw producer Charles Shush. You rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.